All right, welcome to my channel. My name is Jesse, and I'm going to be using the Agile method to make games in my spare time here and documenting it as I go along. So after multiple false starts, I finally figured out a format that I believe is going to work and decided it's finally time to put it into practice. So on Mondays, most likely maybe every Monday, maybe every other Monday, that I'm not positive about, I plan on having what I'm going to call Project Management Monday. Since I'm using the Agile method, this is going to serve as my sprint planning, where I'll go over the tasks that I plan to complete during whatever sprint I'm working on. And as a side note, if you're not familiar with the software development lifecycle, specifically the Agile methodology, don't be alarmed. In short, the Agile method sets aside periods of time called sprints, and usually they're 2 weeks, and you work on a subset of your burn down list during that time. And then also you have usually daily meetings with your team called scrums. And since I'm a solo developer, that's not going to really apply to me, but I am going to try and do a scrum-like thing where I review what I was working on and try and review the previous days and then plan out what I do during the day based on that. So anyway, you have scrum sessions daily and you meet with your team and discuss roadblocks and whatnot. That's the long and short of it. But this method it's useful because it gives you an idea of your completion rate of your tasks, and that helps you determine like your remaining time and budget to complete whatever project you're on. I don't really have a timeline for the projects that I'm going to be working on here, but I also don't want to be like stuck spinning my wheels. So it is good to have a little bit of bureaucracy interjected even in your hobbies. But it also gives you like data points that you can reference when you want to estimate cost and effort for future projects. So I'm going to start small with the project, the requirements that you're looking at right here. But with all that out of the way, welcome to my first sprint. In this video, I'm going to go over these requirements for my first game and first game on this channel. I've made a lot of little things over the years, but first on this channel. For now, I'm calling it Cubomino, working title. If you have any suggestions for a title after you get an idea of what this game is actually going to be, I'm already distracting myself with blue squiggles. But if you have ideas for names, drop them in the comments, let me know. But the core idea is that you're going to be using Tetrominos to clear lines, just like in Tetris, but instead of a 10 by 20 like two-dimensional area, it's going to be a 10 by 10 by 10 cube area. 10 by 10 slices of the area will become active that you can drop Tetrominos to. Most likely, what I'm going to do is have the cube like up above the play area, and then the slices will drop down kind of like a slideshow and then push back up. The slices will clear when there's a 10 by 10 area that's filled in with blocks. And oh yeah, I almost forgot. And every time you go through all 10 slices, the cube will rotate a quarter every time. So it'll make it more difficult to like plan way ahead when you're dropping Tetrominos. And then the board will never really look the same. Every time it drops, it could be a slice of a different cross section. So it'll be scored by the number of slices that you clear, and the Tetrominos are going to use an evolution of the auto rotate feature that I made in my last game. It was a mobile game called Quadri for Android. But the idea is I want to be able to play this on both PC with a mouse pointer or a single finger on mobile. And I also plan on like making multiple skins just to keep things interesting. Also similar to my game Quadri. Check it out if you're interested. But what you're looking at here is a basically a design document that I put together. I put together like a frequently asked questions, not even FAQ, but just questions that I ask myself when I'm starting a new project or when I'm going to start a new project, um, to kind of give me an idea and a roadmap of where I'm going. So who's this game for? I'm saying that it's for fans of Tetris who want a twist on an old classic. And what do I want them to feel while playing? Now, this is something that I found from another developer, and I thought this was an interesting way to put it because instead of thinking in terms of technical specs, you want to think about the experience that you want your users to have. Which is, I mean, that's a good thing to do when you're making any kind of software, but it's especially important in games where it's more about the feeling of fun and joy or sadness or fear. It's more like a movie in that regard where you're dealing in feelings. And all right, so I want to go for that like compulsive drop one more block, clear one more line, play one more game kind of feeling that the classic Tetris gives you. It's simple, you can play it in a few minutes and it'll make you forget about the outside world. And I want you to feel like it was worth your time. You have, a half hour on your lunch break or whatever, taking 10 minutes to play a game. It's not always you can come away from that feeling like you wasted your time. I want you to feel like you relaxed and enjoyed yourself. All right, so what does the early, mid, and late game look like? This is going to be fairly simplistic. This question was meant for more complex games with like storylines and complex mechanics that evolve over time to keep the player interested. Not so much puzzle games, but it still somewhat applies because I'm thinking, early game, it's going to drop slowly. It's going to be easy. The board will be nearly empty, so you won't feel overwhelmed. In the mid game, things are going to get more cluttered because the Tetraminos are going to be speeding up faster and faster. In the late game, the expectation is that you probably won't be able to keep up with it, and the game will end once you can't fit a Tetramino into whatever current slice you're working on. What's the critical path? Now, yeah, I typed out here, this is meant for games with like a main quest and side quests, that kind of thing. And there's no narrative. But another thing that another developer told me was, what's an example of like a story that you want players to tell around the water cooler when they're at work the next day? But I'm just thinking for this game, it'd mostly just be comparing high scores and discussing what graphics you prefer. This is more of like a small little puzzle game before I get into like more complex stuff that I'm going to be making in Unreal. So not applicable. And is the game going to be multiplayer? I'm not really planning on it. No multiplayer planned. Doesn't matter if it's server-based or peer-to-peer, instanced or persistent, not applicable. Another important part about pre-production in any software is a proof of concept. And this doesn't always mean like a tech demo. It might just mean like, are there similar products so that that there's like an actual market for this? And I'm riffing on a classic. So yeah, the concept is already proven. Will my idea be fun? Who knows? But the concept is sound. Dropping Tetraminos and clearing lines, those are the borrowed ideas that I'm taking, and then I'm changing them to fit into a cube in a more 3D space to, add some interest on modern hardware that's capable of it. And has it been done before? Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure I can't be the first person to have ever thought to put Tetraminos in a cube instead of just a 2D 10 by 20 play area. But as far as I know, it's not been done. Is tech prototyping necessary? Yeah, this is what I was getting into up above. But tech prototyping would be if you aren't even sure if the technology is going to work. Or is it going to be feasible, in other words? But will it be fun? And in both cases, is it worth the effort? I mean, you could spend a long time working on a project and it may not be fun, it may not be possible, and you just ended up spinning your wheels for a long time. So tech prototyping, not necessary in this regard. It's going to be a very simple game. What about visual prototyping? This is more something that I think, in my mind, this means look and feel and like a flow chart of the user's experience through the game. But no, I don't really think I need a prototyping. I'm just going to use like known color palettes. I'm not an artist, so I'm just going to go find color palettes that are pleasing to the eye and use them. And Unreal Engine 5 has amazing lighting, and that'll make the graphics look good too. So what's my budget? Financial strategy. I have no budget. I'm just doing this in my spare time. It's a fun project. If I do sell it, a licensing fee is paid to Epic Games. Last I checked, it was after you made 1 million in sales, then I think you start paying Epic 5% of your sales of that going forward. I'm not even sure I'm going to sell this. I'm not even sure I'm going to put it on the Android store, but I'm planning on it. Maybe I'll sell it, maybe I won't, but I'll almost definitely put it on the Google Play Store. All right, so what software do I need to make this thing happen? Do I need to buy it or build it myself? With these questions, I'm thinking like, what do I need to achieve my goal of making this game? And by buy or build, you can use Unreal Engine or Unity or whatever it is, but that doesn't mean that you still don't have to like build development tools for yourself. And I'll get into that more when I start doing more complex stuff. But in the meantime, I don't need to build any special tools for this game. I'm just going to be using Unreal Engine 5 to be specific, for the game logic, C++. I'm going to be using Blender for 3D modeling because I'm familiar with it and it's free. Krita for the same reason. And FL Studio Pro is going to be for making music. Now, I don't know much about making music. This is by far my weakest area of expertise when it comes to making games. And I wouldn't even say I'm particularly an expert at other aspects of making games, but I have been working in the software industry for over a decade and a half. So I know software. I'm just not super familiar with making games, especially the artistic side of it. As far as manpower, I'm going to have no employees. It's just going to be me, no contractors, no anything like that. And do I have any time constraints? Like, is there a deadline here? And in this case, no, there's not. This is not my full-time job. This is just a hobby for me. I already put in my time as a software engineer. This is just extra. All right, so what's my roadmap going to look like? I put this in the pre-production section just because it's going to be a general overview. Now, later when I get into production, I am going to bust out these tasks into all of these categories into their own tasks. And these are what I'm going to be doing in my sprints and what I'll be going over. On Fridays, I plan on doing like play tests to show off like what I had done, if I achieved, do the part of sort of a post-mortem on the sprint. What did I do well? What went not so well? All that kind of stuff. But this is the roadmap. I'm going to be creating the graphical assets for the menu first. Then I'm going to bring the menu functionality into Unreal Engine. Get that so that I can launch the game. You don't really need to do this first, but I just kind of like working my way through things in the order that the user is going to be. For a small project like this, that's perfectly valid. Then I'm going to be creating the models, the 3D models and textures for the gameplay itself. This is where I'll be grabbing color palettes and making 3D blocks and little like little arena areas. Then I'm going to implement the Tetramino queue so that there'll be 5 Tetraminos lined up on the left, and then like every time you drop one, another one will pop into your in play. And I'll set up a holding queue as well, similar to how Tetris has a hold button. Then I'm going to implement the drop and rotate the blocks in the clear line, finally show the score, and check for endgame, and be done with it. Down here, I'll get into production later in a later video, but in the meantime, I just have like more questions that are production relevant, and this is going to go into more planning. I'll do this off camera most likely, and then another part of after the milestones, you want to go into playtesting, probably at each playtest. So that's the questions I was talking about. And then marketing. This is if I do want to sell it, will I advertise? How will I advertise? What will my budget be? All those kinds of concerns. This will be more important if I make something bigger and more complex that I'm looking to sell. But won't be a big deal for this one. And then post-production, community involvement. I'll set up I already have a Discord server. But I also want to ask, like, in the game I'm working on, will a community be likely? Is it even necessary? For a small single-player puzzle game, probably not. And by ad hoc or design, I'm wondering, like, if I do make a game, like, say it's like a building game, like Valheim or Minecraft or something, you end up with a community just kind of like by chance. They congregate on Reddit, all that kind of stuff, forums, Steam forums. But there's also the option that I can like design my own community through, like I mentioned, Discord. That would be more of a designed by me community. And then feedback. How am I going to gather it? Error logs, bug reports, telemetry data, opt-in, of course. Will I get feature requests, which may give me ideas for DLC? And then there's just like old updates. In this, I'm thinking updates on old code, which it will be bug fixing, support issues, crashes, that sort of thing. But that's all I wanted to go over for this project here. This is what I'm doing. And I didn't get into what tasks I'm going to be working on, but I'll probably do that next Monday. I don't want to rush things. And then I'll get into the actual code and software and making 3D models. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments. Bye-bye for now.